So, you want to change the world. Build something that makes people go, maybe you're going to reinvent the way we move, or transform how we work, or change the way we think. Problem is, you'll be flying blind. So, ice and experiment.
Wow.
Thanks for tuning into the Product Operation.
So, you want to change the world. Build something that makes people go, maybe you're going to reinvent the way we move, or transform how we work, or change the way we think. Problem is, you'll be flying blind. You build product on one end, results come out the other, but in between is a massive black hole. And that's why we built Amplitude. It gives you a whole new understanding of customer behavior, predicts outcomes, and adapts experiences to drive world-changing results.
Every click, every interaction is input from your customers telling you what they need and why they need it. And that is 1,000 times stronger than any strategy or any sort of corporate planning session that you could provide.
It starts with our behavioral graph. By sorting through millions of seemingly random actions, it instantly finds patterns, makes recommendations, and connects them to outcomes that really matter, like engagement, growth, and loyalty. Now you have the power to explore, collaborate, personalize, and experiment.
Wow.
Amplitude provides a system where we can share insights and tag each other and collaboratively craft a narrative together. And we can do this all within one system, which is really what makes Amplitude special.
So, you want to change the world? Now you can.
Thanks for tuning into the Product Operations Summit. We really hope you're enjoying the event so far, as there's even more to come. All sessions are designed to be interactive and to give you the chance to engage with our panelists and speakers, so come ready to get involved with your questions and comments. For access to even more exclusive Product Ops content, check out PLA membership plans at productledalliance.com. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the next session.
Hi everyone. Sorry about the minor tech issue and the slight jump in the video, but thank you so much for staying with us and for tuning in. Before I introduce our next speaker, I'm going to do another quick shameless plug for our State of Product Ops survey for 2022. I know you've heard Adam and I mention it a couple of times already today. Last year, we put together a report looking at the state of product ops, looking at definitions of the role and kind of how it's emerging and roles and responsibilities. A year on, we're repeating the report and looking at kind of how things have evolved over the last 12 months. But we want your help to do that. We want to know your kind of definitions, perceptions, and how you perceive and are executing the role. So please do help us out by filling in the survey to help shape the report and the future of the function. Now, I am delighted to introduce our next speaker, Shintaro Matsui, who is the Head of Product Operations from Amplitude. Shintaro is going to talk about, product ops evolved and his journey from scaling a team from 1 to 5 in 18 months. We'll have loads of time for questions at the end, so I'm going to hand over to Shintaro now. So welcome to the virtual stage and take it away.
Awesome, Heather. Thank you so much. And hello, PLA. It's nice and early here in San Francisco, but I see there are a lot of people in the chat from all over the place. I see Dubai, I see Germany. So good evening, afternoon, everyone here. Couldn't be more excited to be here today. As Heather mentioned, my name is Shintaro. I head up the product ops and analytics team here at Amplitude. And we're a product analytics company that helps companies build better products. And it's hard to believe that it's been a year since we last spoke and I shared the stage with John Cutler. And I think it's been really exciting to see the momentum that product ops has had in the last year. And I think now more than ever, I have conviction of just how critical product ops is as a function, not only for product development teams, but for companies as a whole. And this is something that John said to me early on in my journey at product ops at Amplitude, which has really stuck with me and really resonates, which is the people and the systems that create the product are as much the product as the product itself. And I really couldn't agree more. If the process to launch a new product is subpar, or if you have leakages in collecting customer feedback, it makes it really challenging to build and ship a compelling product that adds value to customers. So it's with that in mind that I want to do 3 things with the time that we have together today. One is I want to just share my personal product ops journey. I joined Amplitude a year and a half ago, coming from an operations role at Uber, having really little idea of what the function was or did or looked like at a B2B SaaS company. And a lot of it for me was just figuring it out on the fly. And I wish at the time I had a conference like this to learn from mistakes from others, which brings me to my second point, which is what I'm going to do today is share a lot of the challenges that I faced as I scaled the team. So hopefully you all can get ahead of those and not repeat the same mistakes that I did. And then lastly, to do so, I really want to share specific tactics that I've used over the last year and a half. I hate when these kinds of talks are too theoretical or too high level in nature. So I want to get super specific in terms of the tactics that I used, and hopefully you'll be able to come away today being able to implement a couple of those tactics for your own team. So kind of with that context in mind, today, instead of going really deep in one topic, we're going to go really wide and cover a wide ranging set of topics, everything from selling the product ops vision to how you ask for more resources to launches, frameworks, you name it. We will cover it today in the next half an hour. But I think what's great is you'll kind of get a taste of some of these topics, but then you'll be able to go a lot deeper in some of these topics later on today in some of the talks and some of the panels that you'll have. So how I've structured this talk today is in 3 parts, which represent the 3 stages of my journey within the product ops discipline. The first is when I was a team of 1. I guess I'll look in the chat. Are there other product ops teams of 1 here? If there are, please say so in the chat. I would say that is a really challenging role to be in and have tons of empathy for that particular role. Next is kind of the challenges that I faced as a team of 2. And then lastly, the third chapter, which is as a team of N, or today at Amplitude, a team of 5. So why I did that is because at each phase, I found that you'll come up and run up against different challenges that are quite distinct. So want to chat through those and share those with all of you today. So a couple of caveats before jumping in. I think first, my experience is very specific. I work for a B2B SaaS company in the Bay Area. I know that product ops really varies from company to company and industry to industry. So I want to be very cognizant of that. I would say too is some of these tactics may or may not work for you. Maybe you've tried some of them before. And if you have and they haven't worked for you, don't roast me in the chat. I would say the last one is growth isn't always the goal. So there's some teams here that might remain a team of 1 or a team of 2 in product ops. And that's what makes the most sense for their company. And it's not always about growing the size of your team, but it's really thinking about how you can be the most effective in your function. And lastly, I would say product ops is an evolving function. I by no means have all the answers. I'm constantly learning from all of you continuously. So really excited to continue that discussion. So let's move on to our first chapter, which is a team of 1. So when I joined Amplitude, I was a team of 1. And I don't know if there are other teams of 1 here, as I'd asked before, but this is really how I felt when I was a team of 1 at Amplitude. You join, everything's on fire, you feel this almost moral obligation to fix everything as soon as possible, and it really feels overwhelming. I think when I was a team of 1, these were some of the challenges that I bumped up against. I think one is actually defining the vision for product operations. Like what does product ops mean for your particular company? I would say 2 is thinking about proving value. That's something that you want to start to do right away to really show how product ops could add value for your particular organization. And 3, the challenge is actually doing the work. Not only do you have to define the vision and the strategy, but you as a team of 1 now have to execute against that. So really thinking about, how do you go about doing that in a sustainable way? So in terms of defining the vision, one piece of tactical advice I had and something that was helpful for me was to actually have my 2 weeks in role be a discovery sprint. So I structured that sprint in 3 key steps. So 1, I set up about 35 one-on-ones in my first week at the company with folks spanning product, go-to-market, G&A to really understand where their pain points lay today. In a lot of cases, it felt like I was a therapist, but it was great because folks felt like they were really able to share some of the pain points they were feeling on a day-to-day basis. After I had those one-on-ones and I asked everyone, if I could fix one or two things for you, what would be the highest impact items for product ops to work on? I took those pain points and then started to cluster them, by team. And then lastly, map those out to a 2x2 based on impact and effort. I used to be a consultant. I love 2x2s. So what this does is it actually allows you to ground yourself in the pain of the organization. I think where I see a lot of new product managers have issues is when they come into an organization, take a framework that they've seen work well at other companies, and actually try to apply it full stop across the organization. I think the issue with that is that actually doesn't solve the pain that an organization is feeling. And it's really important to ground yourself in the pain of your organization. Another piece of advice that I would have, or a tactic that was really helpful for me as I was defining the vision, was to come up with a maturity model. And this is one that I use. I'm sure you all can come up with better ones, but essentially, I think what it helps do is ground your organization in where you are today, but also where you want to be in the longer term. So when I joined, I explained to my team that we were very much at a foundational level of product ops maturity, that we were building these foundational tools and processes that should have been in place years ago. We then moved on to an operational level of maturity where product ops was playing a critical role in the day-to-day operations of the company, be it through launches or through owning all of our product metrics, for example. And then finally, kind of the vision that I like to set out for the team to get people excited about product operations is that it can really be a competitive advantage. When all product related processes can be automated or optimized such that any team could work seamlessly through them, it allows those teams to get a lot of time back to work on high leverage activities like speaking to more customers or for coaching their team. So maturity model was really helpful in sharing that longer term vision. I would say, I know that sometimes it could kind of feel like this picture when you're spending a lot of time kind of spreading the product ops gospel, but just know that over time, this message will sink in as you continue to demonstrate value for you and for your function. In reflecting on failures, I think when I was a team of one, I think one thing that particularly came to mind was wanting to work on the highest impact piece of work, regardless of effort. So when I joined, when I spoke to everyone told me that launches were a mess. So I thought, great, I'm going to create a new launch framework, launch framework, and then solve all of these highest impact issues. And I think I quickly went down that path, started to align a lot of stakeholders, but quickly realized that for week 2, I had bitten off way more than I could chew. And then I quickly pivoted and realized that it's much better to chalk up some quick wins to build momentum for the product ops function, as opposed to these big bang efforts. And that actually leads me to my next piece of tactical advice, which is around proving value. And I think a great way to prove value is to chalk up some of these quick wins. And this is an example for me as I was chalking up some of those quick wins, which is PD and 60. So the problem that we were trying to solve is, in speaking to go-to-market during my discovery sprint, a lot of folks were saying that they had no visibility into what product was working on. Go-to-market described it as a black box. They said they're often taken by surprise with launches. So what could we do to solve that? So I actually spun up this newsletter, took about a day to put together, had product folks add updates for what they had worked on in the last month, shared it with the whole company, and people loved it. And I think what's interesting is now, a year and a half later, while this has served us well at the time, we've actually made a lot of investments around a documentation repository and a knowledge management system. And actually, we're asking ourselves if we even need this newsletter anymore. And I think it's a lesson in not getting emotionally attached to processes or initiatives that you kick off. And it's actually success if you kill them off or if you iterate them, because it shows that you're evolving as an organization, as a company. I would say in a similar vein, when you're talking about tactical advice for proving value, I would encourage everyone to always close the feedback loop. And what I mean by that is when you're doing those discovery one-on-one questions, those interviews, and folks share specific pain points that they have, once you actually solve them, go back to them and share that and say, hey, I remember that you had shared this really brutal pain point. Here's an initiative that we've launched, is that meeting your needs, right? And making sure that they feel and they're aware of the effort that's being put in. And I think that does a few things. I think one, helps create trust and goodwill, which is super important as you're building out allies for the product ops function. But I would say two, it can also help with resourcing. So when you're actually making new resourcing asks to build out your team, you could have those folks who've seen the value that product ops create really advocate on your behalf. So I think the other challenge that I mentioned before was actually doing the work when you're a team of one. And what I always encourage folks to do is to start really small. So let's say you want to launch that new launch framework that we had talked about. So I would say instead of feeling like you have to put pen to paper all on your own, really build that framework with key inputs from your stakeholders and almost co-create it with them. I think what's really helpful there is you have people from different perspectives, like go-to-market, like product, like design, who are able to feel like they have a voice and actually feel ownership of that framework. And then once you have a good V1 or even a V0, really pilot it with just one pillar to start, or one pod, a really small team. And what that'll allow you to do is to be able to fail with a really small blast radius. And it allows you to get really quick learnings that you could then integrate into that framework and continue to improve it over time. So once you've launched it with one pod, then you could expand that to say launches within a couple of pillars. And then by the time you actually have to roll it out to a whole product team, you'll not only have ironed out all of the kinks that you wouldn't have had you just launched it in one fell swoop, but you'll actually have a lot of PMs, designers, and engineers who are going to be advocates and champions for this new framework because they've seen it and been a part of creating it from the start. So just a quick recap for challenges and tactics as a team of one. I would say use a 2-week sprint to help define the vision, prove value through quick wins. And then when you're a team of one that has to do all the work, really start small and incorporate other people and other cross-functional stakeholders as you're scaling initiatives. If you do that, it'll help you justify moving on to the next stage, which is as a team of two. And this is how I felt when I made my first hire. I think you feel this sense of relief that you're no longer alone on this island of product operations and that you could scale your impact. I think you'll quickly realize now that you have someone to take care of and that you're responsible for, and a whole new set of challenges arise. So I'd say a couple of those key challenges that I faced was one, saying no. You've gotten that resource now, and people now expect that you have 2x the capacity to do even more work, and to say no is really important. I would say two is scaling the team. Now that you have that team of one, how do you continue to scale that team going forward? The next one is managing ad hoc requests. And I know this group probably gets tons of ad hoc requests as product ops managers. How do you go about managing those effectively? I would say one key failure that I had when I was a team of two was just saying yes to everything. I think I really wanted to demonstrate the value that our team could provide across a broad cross-section of pieces of work. And I think this was detrimental for a few reasons beyond just the fun byproducts of things like burnout, but it really gave false expectations of the function's capacity, which is really hard to right size going forward. And I think one way to fix that is through this next tactic, which I call drawing the line. And this was actually a slide that I made for my manager, whereby I really distinctly outlined what our team could accomplish with the resources that we had. That's everything above the line. And then also what could be unlocked with more resources, which is below the line. And I think being so explicit with your team and your cross-functional partners really helps create alignment and also helps create the right expectations. And it's also helpful to get people really excited about everything that's below the line to help unlock further resources for your team. I think why this is also so important is that if you're continuously saying yes and taking on new work, you're not actually able to close off initiatives that you kicked off. So what we like to say at Amplitude is stop starting and start finishing, and saying no helps you do that. Another challenge that we faced is scaling the team. How do you go about scaling the team? And one thing that was really helpful, and a tactic that was helpful for at Amplitude, was actually testing out the embedded model with the other product ops team member that I had. So we actually embedded this product ops manager within a product pillar, which is a team that owns a large surface area within our product, and actually had that product ops manager attend all of their rituals. And I actually asked that manager to put together a list of all the observations that they had, improvements that they can make for that function, and had them support a launch. And what happened was people were soon able to see the value of having someone in that role. And what happened was there was a lot of word of mouth that spread, and that other pillars soon wanted to have an embedded product manager as well, which was really helpful pull in asking for more resources. Also wanted to share some tactical advice around managing ad hoc requests. So there are always going to be pressing ad hoc requests that come, whether it's launches or M&A. So a tactic for managing those requests that has been really helpful for the product ops team is doing sprint planning. And this is sprint planning specifically for the product ops team, as opposed to the broader organization. And I think the benefits that this has had for our team is a fewfold. I think one, it allows us to track incoming asks. Two, it allows us to provide visibility to the rest of the org as to what we're working on. And then three, it creates empathy for other product teams who are running sprint planning themselves, and that we're actually able to share best practices and how we approach sprint planning. So again, quick summary for teams of two: draw the line to help delineate what you can commit to with what resources you have, improve your changes of, your chances of scaling the team by piloting the embedded model, and then help manage those ad hoc requests through sprint planning. And we'll head off to our last chapter, which is having a team of N. Now, I think some of you might think, once you're a team of N, you've really made it. You have all of the resourcing that will really help solve some of those issues that you've had. But that's really not the case. You're going to have a whole new set of problems as you face as a larger team, and that's going to manifest itself in a few key challenges. I would say the challenges that I have faced so far are, one, thinking about how you structure the team. It's great you have all these resources, but how do you organize them to be the most effective? I would say two is scaling your learnings. You're going to have each of these team members that are going to be working on their respective work streams and their respective product teams. How do you bring those learnings back to the organization and scale those? And three is managing processes and initiatives. You'll now be launching tons of new initiatives. How do you make sure that those are still being effective and that you're revisiting all of them on a regular cadence? So the first challenge was structuring the team. And again, caveat here in that this really varies from team to team. And this is just the approach that we've taken at Amplitude and what's worked well so far. But we've taken the approach of a combination between an embedded model and then also product ops majors and minors. So I'll talk through the embedded model first. So the embedded model essentially means that each of our product ops managers are embedded within a particular product team. And why I really love this model is it helps product ops managers develop specific product expertise. It helps us develop deep empathy for those respective product teams. And it really helps product ops managers become that strategic thought partner for the PM. Product ops managers have the pulse on everything, how go-to-market is feeling, what customer feedback they're hearing. So really embedding them in the team allows them to become that strategic thought partner. Then secondly, what's also been really helpful for us is, this notion of majors and minors. And what I really love about majors and minors is it also helps product ops managers develop specific product ops competencies while also being able to dabble in other areas that they're interested in. So if you look on the right here, these are our product ops managers, and some of the key focus areas within the team. So for example, we have a product ops manager whose major is program management, but their minor is building and launching because that's something that they're super interested in. I think one of the beauties of product operations is just the breadth of work that can be taken advantage of and folks can be exposed to. Next, in terms of scaling learning, something that I would encourage you all to do is create your own company frameworks. Something that I've realized are, problem spaces are very specific company to company. And while there are best practices out there, it's really important to adapt those to what makes the most sense for your company. And once you have this framework, and for context, this is our product development framework that we put together over the last quarter. I think what we've realized is it's really helpful to codify these for your company and make sure that folks have a voice in building those out. It's also really helpful to do a retro on these on a regular basis to ask yourself, hey, is this framework still serving us today? Where did it fall short? And to continue to improve them over time. I think another way that we've been able to scale learnings is something that we're actually kicking off next week, which is a team learning review. So this is actually going to be an hour-long meeting every month where folks on the team get to share what they've been working on and learnings that they've gleaned from the last month. I also think this is a great opportunity to bring in other product ops guest speakers. And I've actually been guest speakers for other learning reviews, and it's always great to chat with other product ops teams and to hear how they're approaching and what they're learning from their respective teams. Another way to scale learnings is office hours. And I think office hours have been really helpful for product ops and Amplitude. And I think you could have a couple of flavors of office hours. I think one is you could have office hours after you've launched an initiative. So for example, product ops ran our annual product planning process. And since it was a pretty complex process, we actually offered 30 minutes of office hours every week where anyone can come by and provide questions or feedback. I think the other flavor this could take is actually just a more generic office hours for product operations, where you can invite the whole company to come and share feedback and ask questions. And this is also a really great opportunity for product ops folks to present new initiatives that they've been working on as well. I think one big failure that I've had when I was reflecting on my time as a team of N was assuming that a process that worked well historically will continue to scale. And there are many processes that I implemented a year and a half ago that just don't work anymore, given, we've almost doubled our team size today. So that's something that I'm really conscious of. I think too, it's also really important to think about deprecating or modifying a process as a success. It shows you're continuing to grow, that you're continuing to evolve as an organization, and to not become emotionally attached to them. I don't know if there are any plant people on the call, but I think one way to think about it is processes and systems as gardens that you continuously need to be taking care of and pruning regularly. And one way in which we've actually done that, which is a tactical piece of advice around managing process overhead, are quarterly process reviews. And this is what you see here is just the Miro board that we actually ran to do this. And what we did was, all those large blue boxes that you see there are actually recurring processes. And we brought in a group of folks, both on the leadership team, but also more folks that are on the ground, like designers and PMs. And we asked them to stack rank those processes on a scale of 1 to 10 based on what's most helpful and effective. And it's really fascinating to see how folks are feeling about processes that you thought were working incredibly well are actually ineffective, and vice versa. And then also what we did here was we asked folks to add in specific suggestions for improvement. So if you do this on a regular basis, if you do this quarterly, by the end of the year, you're going to have really sound and tight processes. And that's something that we're really conscious of and trying to drive this year. So just in summary here, when thinking about structuring the team, don't be afraid to pilot the embedded model with majors and minors. Think through frameworks and learning reviews as a way to help scale learnings, and then use those quarterly process reviews to edit down and continuously improve your learnings. So again, just a quick recap in terms of what we chatted through today, kind of challenges and tactics across each of those chapters. But I think what's an interesting question is to think about is, what's next? How does the product ops function continue to evolve? And I think I definitely don't have all the answers, but I think I've seen a few interesting things in the market. I think I've seen one product ops teams applying that operational know-how to other problem spaces within the product world, like design, like research. You're seeing kind of those research and design ops functions emerge. I think what's also interesting is I've seen a lot of product ops teams actually start to take on cross-functional scope. So I have a good friend, Tim Chen. He actually worked at product ops at HelloFresh in the UK, and he was explaining how the product ops team at HelloFresh actually owned a lot of the assortment planning and some traditionally like RevOps functions, just because their team was so strong. So I think that's a really interesting trend. And then I've also seen product ops teams be so effective that there's actually a one-to-one mapping between product ops managers and PMs, because they're just seen as so critical to the function today. But I think at the end of the day, it's really up to this group that's on the call to decide what that looks like. And I'm really excited to learn from you all and to continue that discussion. So just want to say thank you so much. Hopefully you gleaned a tactic or two that you could implement for your own respective teams. And maybe there's a topic that's piqued your interest that you'll be able to dive deeper in today. Want to give a huge shout out to Heather for bringing this group of amazing people together. Just the level of connections that I've made through PLA have just been truly fantastic. And then also a huge shout out to my team who are also on the call. Could not have asked for a better team, and they're really fantastic. And if you have any questions or you want to continue this conversation, please feel free to reach out either by email, or I believe Heather put some of my contact information in the chat. So with that time, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Ndara, for that fantastic, honest, humble, and insightful presentation. Lots of energy and comments in the chat. So I think people took a lot away from it and lots of points to discuss. And thank you very much for the shout out as well. It's a pleasure to work with you and everyone else in the community. It's truly fun. So we have quite a few questions. Let's start. We've got one here from John. John would like to know, what is the biggest challenge you faced when you looked at continuously scaling a product ops team? How did you overcome this?
Yeah, I think one of the key issues that I faced, that came back to some of those discovery sessions that I talked about, which was, as you scale the team and your organization scaling, the pain points will evolve. And as I said, it's always important to ground yourself on the pain points of the organization. So make sure that you're continuously going back and having that pulse on what's actually burdening the organization, because what might have been burdening the organization when your organization was 300 people might be very different even 6 months later when you're a team of 500, for example. So I would just say to constantly make sure that you have a pulse and that you're solving for the right problem.
Nice. Got one here from Lavanya, who wants to know, what are some of the key similarities and differences between site reliability engineering and product ops teams? Are these roles really exclusive and distinct?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Again, I'd say it really depends on the function. At Amplitude, we don't have a site reliability team, and kind of that lives within the product ops team. But I would say there's no right or wrong answer. It really just talks about most important thing is that you're solving the pain for your organization. And also, I just encourage folks to chat with one another. I think I have learned a lot in terms of how to structure my team or what other folks are doing on their teams, and that's just been incredibly helpful as I've tried to scale my learnings over time.
Nice. We've got one here from Caitlin, who asks, who do you include in your process reviews? Are they typically group activities or one?
Yeah, Caitlin, really great question. So what we actually do is we do them by groups. So I actually held my process review with the product leadership team. And what's interesting is you see what's most important for that particular subset of stakeholders. But then I have folks on my team actually running similar sessions for product managers or designers or engineers. And I think when you're able to see how those different groups of stakeholders view and value certain processes, you actually glean a lot more information than just doing it on a one-off basis. So that's how we've run them. We run them through Miro. It took about a half an hour. It's pretty lightweight. So, Caitlin, happy to kind of chat through that with you in greater detail as well.
Nice. We've got one here from Amanda Lane, which I think there probably won't be a kind of cut straight up answer, but how do you find really good people to hire for product ops?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and something that's important as you're scaling the team. I would say the profile that you look for probably depends on the scale of your team. So for example, when you're making your first product ops hire, the profile that was helpful for me to look for was more of a generalist, right? Because this person is not necessarily going to have a specific domain expertise. They're going to be working on a ton of different programs and projects. So having someone who might be coming from an ops background or consulting, who's really flexible in terms of the different kinds of work that they can lean into, was what I looked for in my first hire. Now that's very different now, and I'm thinking about my fourth, fifth, and sixth hire, where there might be specific needs that we're looking to fill, like a research operations function, for example. Like, would really want to have someone who has good subject matter expertise in that domain and who could really own that particular function. So I'd say it really depends based on the size and the scale of your organization.
Makes good sense. We've got one here from Thomas, who wants to ask, how do you measure the impact of the product ops teams, both in the planning phase, 2x2 matrix, and when reflecting on the changes you implemented?
Yes, really great question, Thomas. And I feel like that I could be wrong, but I feel like there's a whole section on this later, potentially.
There is a panel in, no, not 5 minutes, in about 2 hours and 25 minutes that will look at measuring success. Yes. So
I will probably not do them justice, but I think how we think about it on the product ops team is at Amplitude is we have a North Star metric, which is org enablement satisfaction. That's measured through a company-wide survey every 6 months. Helped us have a baseline to make sure that we're allowing people to quickly move through product ops processes, and also to allow us to gather a lot of qualitative feedback that's incredibly helpful. But I'd say secondly, for each of our experiments that we run or new initiatives, we make sure that we set out success criteria for those, and that those then ladder up to broader focus areas that we had described before, like voice of the customer, like strategy and planning, like building and launching. And for each of those different areas, we have our respective, I know your cat's really excited about product ops. I love it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Raphael.
Yes. So yeah, Thomas, hopefully that kind of gives you a taste, and then you could dive deeper in with the panel.
Cool, and I think we've got time for one more. I do apologize for the sort of cameo from Raphael. Got one here from Karen. As you scaled the team, what did your career ladder look like for product ops? Is it similar to product management, or is it a jumping point into other areas?
Yeah, really great question, Karen. I would say we based our product ops ladder on the PM ladder that we have at Amplitude, but then we also incorporated ops competencies as well. So it's kind of a synthesis of both, so to speak.
Brilliant. And with that, we are at time. So Shintaro, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, and thank you to our fantastic audience for all the questions and engagement as well. If you want to continue the conversation, Shintaro is very active on the Slack, PLA Slack, and also I've added his LinkedIn in the top blue box there where it says connect with Shintaro. So yeah, Shintaro, a huge thank you for taking part and sharing your wisdom and insights. And Shintaro will be moderating a panel later on today looking at the role of product ops in product launches. So if you want more Shintaro, then yeah, tune in a bit later on. Yeah, huge thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Chat soon.
Thanks everyone. Bye.